What if a single line of steel could decide where cities rise, where empires expand, and how fast history moves? Before railways, distance was what controlled economies, wars, and daily life. And after them, time itself was compressed. Some railways didn't just move people and goods, they rewired nations and even shifted global power. Today, we're looking at the railways that didn't just change the way we travel, they changed the world forever. Desmate's Stockton Darlington Railway. Most people believe steam locomotives were too dangerous, too unreliable, and too impractical to ever replace horses. But in September of 1825, something unexpected took place. On September 27, 1825, George Stephenson's Locomotion No. 1 hauled the first train on the Stockton and Darlington Railway. The locomotive weighed around 7 tons and used a high-pressure steam engine to drive its wheels. During the opening run, it pulled around 30 wagons, carrying coal, goods, and approximately 400 passengers, reaching speeds of 12 to 15 miles per hour. This moment marked the birth of modern rail transport. It proved publicly that steam locomotives could operate on iron rails in a regular, reliable, and cost-effective way. The railway itself stretched about 40 kilometers and was designed primarily for transporting coal from mines to ports. Almost overnight, railways stopped being curiosities and became necessities. Tracks spread across Britain, then Europe, carrying coal, goods, workers, and ideas. Entire industries reorganized themselves around rail access. Cities grew where rails met, and time itself began to standardize. The Stockton and Darlington Railway didn't span continents or boast colossal engines, but it did something far greater. It proved that the future would run on rails. What began as an experiment soon became an obsession. Stockton and Darlington proved on a local scale what the next railway would attempt on a continental one. Steam had been validated. Now it was time to see if iron rails could unite an entire nation. 9. The Transcontinental Railroad. By the mid-19th century, the United States was a nation divided by distance. The Atlantic and Pacific coasts might as well have been worlds apart. A journey from New York to California could take months, involving perilous wagon trails, treacherous mountain passes, or long sea voyages around South America. As the country expanded westward, the question became unavoidable. How could a single nation survive when its halves were so far apart? Gold discoveries, new settlements, and rising trade made the need for a faster connection urgent. The dream of a coast-to-coast railway promised unity, prosperity, and control, but the land in between was vast, hostile, and unforgiving. So how do you bind a continent together when mountains and deserts stretch endlessly ahead, and the nation itself is still healing from civil war? The answer came in iron and sweat. In 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, linking the American East and West for the first time. With the driving of the Golden Spike at Promontory Summit, Utah, the United States was physically united by rail. What once took months could now be done in days. The most common locomotives used were 440 American-type steam locomotives. This wheel arrangement offered a balance of speed, stability, and flexibility on uneven tracks. These engines burned wood in forested regions and coal where available, operating at steam pressures between 120 and 140 pounds per square inch. The Transcontinental Railroad was both a triumph and a tragedy. It became a symbol of American ambition, progress, and expansion, but also of exploitation and loss. And if this railway united a nation, another would attempt to unite an empire. 8. The Great Indian Peninsula Railway. In the mid-19th century, India was vast, fragmented, and ruled by a distant empire. Regions were separated by geography, language, and slow travel routes. For the British colonial administration, controlling such a massive subcontinent required more than authority or violence. It required speed. Moving troops, raw materials, and information across thousands of kilometers was inefficient. What began as a colonial solution to imperial logistics would soon reshape the daily lives of millions. What happens when a tool built to control a land ends up connecting it instead? In 1853, India witnessed its first passenger train running from Bombay to Thane under the Great Indian Peninsula Railway. The 34-kilometer route used a 5-foot 6-inch broad gauge, chosen for stability and heavy loads, a gauge still used across much of India today. Early locomotives were British-built steam engines, including 240 and 440 types, designed for durability over speed. One of the greatest challenges was the Western Ghats, particularly the Bore Ghat incline, which required steep gradients, tunnels, viaducts, and helper locomotives. The railways were unmistakably tools of empire, designed to extract resources and assert control. Yet over time, something unexpected happened. The same railways became channels of unity and resistance. Freedom fighters traveled on them. After independence, this infrastructure was reclaimed and expanded, evolving into Indian Railways, one of the largest networks in the world. 7. The Berlin to Baghdad Railway. By the early 20th century, Europe was balanced on a knife's edge. Railways had become instruments of strategy, not just transportation. Germany sought a direct route to the Middle East, while the Ottoman Empire saw opportunity and partnership. Together, they envisioned a railway stretching from Berlin to Baghdad. What happens when a railway threatens to shift global power before a single shot is fired? The Berlin to Baghdad Railway was a geopolitical statement. If completed, it would grant Germany access to Middle Eastern resources while bypassing British-controlled sea routes. Construction began in the early 1900s, using standard gauge to integrate with European networks. German-built steam locomotives such as 060, 260, and 280 types focused on hauling heavy freight over sustained gradients. Speed mattered less than power. Some railways weren't built for people. They were built purely for control. 6. The Trans-Siberian Railway. Russia has always been defined by scale. By the late 19th century, its vast size had become both strength and weakness. Eastern Russia remained isolated and vulnerable. To secure its future, Russia envisioned a railway that would bind Europe to the Pacific. How do you build a railway across frozen tundra, mountains, forests, and rivers? Completed over decades, the Trans-Siberian Railway stretched nearly 9,300 kilometers from Moscow to Vladivostok. Built using Russian broad gauge, it allowed heavier loads and created a defensive barrier against foreign rolling stock. Steam locomotives like the 260 Mogul and 280 Consolidation emphasized reliability and tractive effort. Engineers battled permafrost with raised embankments and heavy ballast, though constant maintenance was unavoidable. More than infrastructure, the Trans-Siberian Railway became Russia's spine, holding together an empire across continents. But some railways didn't just cross nations, they crossed nature itself. 5. The Panama Railway. Before the Panama Canal, ships were forced to sail thousands of extra miles around South America. As global trade expanded, a faster crossing became urgent. Could a railway conquer one of the most hostile environments on Earth, and at what cost? Completed in 1855, the Panama Railway became the first to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The 48-mile line was built to standard gauge and designed for high-value transit. Powered mainly by 440 steam locomotives, the railway dramatically reshaped global trade routes. It didn't just shorten journeys, it redefined how the world moved its wealth. Where oceans met, rails made the world smaller. 4. The Orient Express. By the late 19th century, Europe was modernizing, but cultural divides still separated East and West. Then came a train designed not just to move people, but to impress them. Could a railway reshape diplomacy and culture through luxury? Launched in 1883, the Orient Express connected Paris to Constantinople in unprecedented comfort. Lavish interiors, fine dining, and private cabins transformed rail travel into an experience of elegance. Pulled by refined steam locomotives and paired with specially designed passenger cars, the Orient Express proved that influence didn't always arrive with force. Sometimes it arrived wrapped in silk and polished brass. 3. The Hejaz Railway. At the dawn of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire sought to unite faith, authority, and technology. Thousands of pilgrims journeyed across deserts toward Medina and Mecca. Could a railway serve God, strengthen an empire, and survive war? Construction began in 1900, funded by donations from Muslims worldwide. The railway reduced pilgrimages from weeks to days. Built for reliability over speed, the Hejaz Railway battled deserts, sand, heat, and water scarcity. Though short-lived, it embodied the intersection of faith, empire, and conflict. 2. The Shinkansen. After World War II, Japan needed reinvention. Conventional railways were at their limits. What if a train could rival airplanes in speed and surpass them in reliability? Launched in 1964, the Shinkansen became the world's first high-speed railway. Powered by electric multiple units and overhead lines, it combined speed, safety, and precision. Beyond transport, it reshaped Japan's economy, urban life, and inspired high-speed rail worldwide. But one railway reshaped not just travel, but civilization itself. 1. The British Railway Network. During the Industrial Revolution, Britain built the world's first integrated railway network, connecting cities, ports, and factories into a unified system. How did one nation's railway become the foundation for nearly every modern railway? British locomotives, engineering standards, and operational philosophy spread across the empire and beyond. Railways accelerated industry, reshaped cities, and transformed global trade. Today, as the world confronts climate change, rail stands again as one of the most efficient and sustainable ways to move people and goods. Railways once changed the world forever. The question now is, what will the next generation of rails change next?